So let's talk about competitive intelligence. This is one of those things, like when you're starting to be a product manager, they don't really talk about a whole lot. It's one of those things that's like, hey, what do we know about market from some VP or some other person that says, hey, what's the marketplace doing out there? And you're like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, don't you do competitive intelligence on our competitors? And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I know some stuff, but what we want to cover today is like kind of the steps to doing this. And kind of giving you guys an outline of what that might look like. And then obviously the biggest thing is I love to just hear from you guys in terms of kind of what you do as well. So I don't want this to be me talking for the next, 25 plus minutes or whatever. So I want to start off with just a real simple, So first off, thank you to our sponsors, the Texas Films School of Business, and our Log Rocket sponsorship, as well as the Pragmatics Institute for supporting us. So I need everybody we're going to do a little fun thing here. So what I want you to do, if you can scan this QR code, or you can put in slido.com. We're going to spend about 5 minutes. And what I want you to do is just put words as to what you think competitive intelligence means. I'm going to try to step back out of the way. But what are the words that come to your mind when you think of competitive intelligence? Now we'll get to the next one. All right. So what do we got here? It looks like research is the biggest one. So it's research, comparison, kill competition. I like that. Never enough time. Accurate. Analysis, comparison, competition. Yeah, so these are kind of the things I would, definitely spy. Ooh, I like that one. Actually, I'll talk a little bit about that too. So this is all cool. So this is very helpful. And we're going to cover a lot of these topics in our next 20-ish 5 minutes. So one of the first things you want to know is, like, if you're thinking about this, what is it you're trying to do? What is your objectives? What are the things you're trying to understand when you do the competitive intelligence? So things around like, it's working. Okay. What I can't talk. Specific questions do you want to answer? What are you looking to understand? And then you want to think about, is it competitor product features? Are you just looking to do a feature comparison? Are you looking to pricing? Like, how do our pricing strategies match up? Pricing strategies, how do we match up in pricing? Are we higher? Are we lower? Where do we want to be? Market positioning, like where are we at in the market? What's our other competitors at? What's the market share? Who's seen as the leaders in the space that we're in, whatever that space may be. And then maybe we also want to look at customer satisfaction. Like, are customers happy with what they're seeing from us or from other vendors that we might be in place with? So a lot of stuff here. And we're going to kind of break these down, and we'll summarize this at the end. But please feel free to ask me questions too. Because I may not know the answer, but hopefully somebody else does. So, okay, and then something else, right? Just, there's something else I want to learn. Okay, so, I think the first thing in the steps, as we go through this, is you've got to identify your competitors. What does that mean exactly? Well, you're going to have to figure out from yourself and from the research, who are those direct and indirect competitors. Usually, honestly, some of the best people, for that's going to be some of your salespeople, because they're going to know in the RFPs and in all the solutions that they're going against. They're going to tell you everything about the competitors and what they can and can't do. So they're a good source for that. There's also websites where you can literally type in name of company's competitor or a competitor of this, and you'll get a list, right? Then you got to quantify that list because it may have everything on there, but you gotta, as part of being a product manager, you gotta know the product and you gotta know the market that you're in. So you gotta make sure like you're staying up to date on that. And you're gonna get lots of feedback internally. And so that's one area, is just identifying the competitors. And like I said, that's just part of that word cloud of research, the biggest one that we talked about, right? The other one you're going to want to do is find friendly new customers. And here's what I mean by that. It's like customers that have just signed or recently signed. Have a conversation with them, because guess what? They just went through probably a vendor assessment process. And they picked you guys, and it's good to know, why did you pick us? You also might hear things about the competitors, like, well, now they're friendly, so, why did you choose us, right, over X or Y? And figure out, like, what does that look like? And, you're going to want to bring in probably some customer success people, whoever managing the client. You're not going to just want to do this on your own. You're going to need to make sure you're following the right rules and places, the order of business. But you want to find those friendly customers, because they're going to give you probably more details than you'll ever know. They may even give you documents, which you're probably not supposed to do, but they'll probably give you documents like, here's how they comparison. This is what they did. And so you want to be able to use those friendly clients. Other great ones are like, my favorite are clients that are like, we're done with you guys. Done. 2 years later. Hey, you guys still selling that software that we, And they're like, oh, what happened? Like, well, the vendor didn't really work out for us, and we kind of, miss you guys. And you're like, oh, okay. Obviously, you want to take advantage of that to understand why they're coming back. What are those misses? Like, man, when we left, you guys could do this one thing so well, and we went to this other company, and they couldn't do that at all, or it was a struggle. Maybe it's implementation. Maybe it's the abilities of the software, because, when you're selling software, everybody tells you can do everything, right? And so, like, you want to try to catch them at a time that they're coming back, and just having those conversations the best you can, especially if you have a relationship with them. Which a lot of product people do have those relationships as well. You want to leverage these relationships you have internally. Again, this is back to the sales and the CSM team. If you've ever been around sales or CSL team, they will tell you what you don't do very well, right? Can we all agree to that? And tell me, I bet you never have heard this before. If we only had this one feature, right, I could make us $1 million tomorrow. Right. So I know everybody's laughing because you haven't heard that before, so that's very foreign to everybody. But like, they still can help though, right? So they can still help you like understand like where they're coming from, how their positioning is working, like what are they failing at. I'm not really talking about win-loss data, although that's really, really important. If you don't have a documented win-loss data system in place, you definitely want to have that to understand, why are we winning, why are we losing? Because that's the questions the upper management's going to ask you. Yes?
What's a documented something?
Oh, a win-loss analysis?
Analysis.
Yeah, so like we win because of these things, we lose because of these things, right? And then as product people, we want to focus on things that we're losing on, right? Or at least we think so. Hopefully they're market problems. But yeah, you want to take all that information from those clients. And what I like doing with CSMs is I will usually have a quarterly meeting with the CSM team, and I'll just be like, hey, what are you guys hearing now? What are the clients happy about? You could do, one-offs and other things too. Because what I'm listening for is what are things that are getting repeated that, clients are saying we need these features or we need those features, right? So then you can build that into your competitive analysis to say, okay, do our competitors actually have these features too? There could be some that's going to, solve a huge problem. And I don't want to get into market problem. That's a different topic. But like that's important though, right? Because that gives you that competitive edge to be able to understand where your clients are coming from. So you want to leverage these internal relationships as much as possible. But with sales and CSMs, always take it with a grain of salt. Hopefully that didn't pick up, but anyway, if anybody's doing CSMs or sales here, I'm sorry.
CSM?
Oh, client success manager. I'm sorry. I'm not using verbology. I'm so sorry. It's just like I'm right off. It's a client success manager, customer success manager, somebody that manages the client, you know, at a one-to-one level. So, okay. So, any questions on that? Anybody have any good ideas on things that they've done well with the CSM team, or methodologies, or things that they've been able to go, oh, this has really worked well for us? I went to the session where he said silence is not. So
I'll just tell you, oftentimes it's if the salesperson just understood the software, they'd find the features there.
Right. Yeah. Then they need
The solutions there.
They need the solutions consultant to help with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this is kind of why I'm here. So I'm on the sales side,
Uh-oh.
and we don't have a product team to bridge, and so there's a gap in communication.
Okay.
So I've already learned a lot today with how we can, without a product team, how we can open up those channels of communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear me a few minutes ago.
Yeah. We have no solutions. I don't know what you're talking about.
Perfect. Okay, so let's keep going. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Review their help and support guides. Like, I will go and I'll be like, clients like, well, you know, and that's not how the client talks, but you know, and they're like, well, you know, like they had this one thing, man, and they talked about we would have that. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And so, again, I may not say I want to build this, that's a different discussion, but if I can go and find a user guide that shows what that feature does and what are the benefits of it, that's something I can find useful to say, okay, maybe we should build a business case for doing this if we have 5 clients that are talking about this one feature from this other company, right? Because we also want to keep our clients happy, right, for renewal time. So those are really good resources, and it's like something not everybody thinks about, but I have found them to be super helpful. And we'll talk a little bit more about some other ones as well. But yeah, if you can find competitors' user guides or help desk or anything like that, great source of inside information.
Yeah, one of my go-tos is I try to find people that have gotten their demos. You know, so if you have customers that have gotten a demo of that, and if they're real friendly, if they've recorded them, they might even.
That's what I said, friendly customers.
Yeah.
And I've had clients that have done that too, and be like, oh, do you want to see the pricing sheet? And of course, what am I going to say? No, I can't, I don't want to see that. So like, yeah, absolutely. And that's all about building those relationships, right? With your CSM team, your sales team, your clients. And so this is all a part of that whole process. This one's a good one too, reviewing their job listings. Looking at their job listings, what are they hiring? Are they hiring, wow, you know, they're hiring 3 people in their Gen AI department. You know, we're creating a Gen AI department. We don't know. You know, we don't have any. Or is that something we need to think about, right? So where are they going? That's like a leading indicator of kind of what they're thinking and what they want to do. It won't always help you because some of the ones will just, you can't, you know, it's like they want developers and things like that. But like there could be some. And again, this is also about not doing this on a, you know, you don't want to look at this stuff like every day, but we'll talk about you want to stay up to date on these things later. But it's something you just want to think about. It's a part of your toolkit, you know, as you think about the things that you want to do to stay competitive in the marketplace. And then the other one is, this one's also been a really good help for me, is YouTube and using the image search on Google. So if you have like an image of something like from a user guide, or you found some image, you can try and find out where that came from, and then you might find more details about that. Because a lot of companies they'll put a lot of stuff on YouTube, but they won't necessarily, like, you're not going to be able to find it. But if you can do keywords, you can then find their presentations online. A lot of them will put them, you know, Slido or other places. And so you want to be able to use that as additional information as well. And that's really what I find to be helpful. And I've used YouTube many times. And it'll be like, oh, well now I know what this feature is, or like they do a monthly. Here's our new stuff. All right, here's what we're coming out with now. You're like, well that's good to know. Again, I'm not going to get into product market and fit and all that, but like it's good just to know what they're doing. That's what we're talking about. And then I'll do a couple more things, but depending on your industry, there may be publications you can pull from that will help you. So there's going to be industry people you're going to want to look at. Typically, you would go to LinkedIn, start searching for competitors, the competitor names, follow their pages, by the way, on LinkedIn, so you get updates when they post stuff. But then you're also going to want to say, okay, what does the market think about this? And so there's kind of two big companies that do these things, and it's going to be different based off your industry. So some of them they may not do, but like Forrester Wave and Gartner, they both have their own, like, these are the companies that are visionaries, or they call it the Magic Quadrant on Gartner. And so what you can do here is you can look and see, and a lot of times you'll know this because your company will actually be a part of these analysis. So like they will reach out to your company and go, hey, we want to interview you for our Gartner Magic Quadrant. So you're actually a part of that too. Well, hopefully you are. But what you want to be able to do then is you can look at this and say, geez, we're down here in the bottom, what CVent in this case is the leader. Then it'll have all the details about why they see them as the leader. And if you're participating in it, you'll get a copy of that at the end. Here's the other thing you can do. When the companies get on these quadrants, they market the hell out of this stuff to say, we're a leader in the quadrant. And you can go, if you don't have the report or you can't get to it, they'll always offer it to you for free. So you can sign up and get the report, and then you can see everything that's been written about those companies that are in that report. And then we'll get into like pros and cons, where they're strong, where they're weak. And they're interviewing those companies. Like I've been in those things where they're interviewing you to get that information. And so these things this is like from a very high level, this is one of the most powerful things. If you're in an industry that Gartner or Forrester follows, they don't follow every industry, but if you're in larger ones, they will. But this can be really, really powerful information. Any questions? I don't know what time. I don't know. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. We're actually going pretty fast.
One suggestion I might have is, depending on your LinkedIn preferences and their preferences, they will notice you're looking.
Yeah.
But on other media, it may not be so. So if they're posting on Facebook.
So, yeah.
Depending on whether you want to be seen or not.
Yeah, so there is let me kind of preface something here because I think this is really important. So in my last job, we actually had a guy that was doing competitive intelligence.
Right.
That was his job. Right? So he would walk the product team every quarter or 6 months through all these documents, and we would come together and talk about them. I asked him a question because I was like, look, if I want to go to a webinar of one of our competitors, what should I do? Should I use my personal email address, my work email address? What should I really do? And he says, I just always use my work email. And if they want to block me, they can. But he also doesn't want to, because they're going to go look you up on LinkedIn, like, anyway.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, I kind of like the honesty is the best policy in this area. It's just like, tell them where you're at. And then if they decide not to keep you or block you or whatever, that's on them. But most of the time they don't, because they're just like, this is all just going in the marketing engine. And I've actually used it several times. I've never not been able to get in or get access. But that's just more like an FYI. for people if you're asking, because I think I've always, people have been in that position, it's like, well, my name is, something else, right? I can't think of another name. Must be the lunch. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things.
Yeah, and it depends on your motive. Like if you're trying to sleuth around,
Right.
you
Right.
want to hide it on behalf of your company, or
Right.
if you're trying to build an industry-wide solution that nobody has it might be a good idea to
Yeah.
send your work email
Yeah.
and let them know you're looking, you're trying to solve the problem together.
Right. So your miles may vary, right? You kind of have to decide on the timing of what you want to do, because what I don't want to happen is somebody in like they know somebody and they talk to Mike and it's like, hey, why did you sign up for this? And then if I'm using all my information that's true, I'm like, well, I told them all the details. I wasn't trying to hide it. It depends on how tight knit also the industry is. But yeah, I totally get your question there. Somebody else had it. Yes. Oh.
So along that line, there's somebody put up their spying.
Yes.
And I know when I talk about competitive intelligence, I always talk about there's ethical and unethical, there's legal and illegal.
Right.
And I think ethical, it kind of comes down to a company's perception of it or your own standards. But I don't want to throw you off track in your presentation, but would you talk about those two aspects of it?
Yeah.
Ethical and legal.
Yeah, I mean, so I'll be careful.
Be careful.
Because this is really almost, some of this stuff can be almost like it's a personal decision and a company decision, right? Because, like I said, that's why I asked the guy that did the competitive intelligence for my company. I was like, well, what do you do in this situation? And I think, there are times where maybe, you may want not to be as honest about things for particular reasons. Again, back to the spy on the research. But I think that, I'd say, like, if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to take that route, I would at least have a discussion with somebody else in the company before you would do that, so that you're not like maybe the lead chief counsel officer is going to be assistants. I don't know. I mean, they're going to tell you what not to do anyway. But I think that could be a good conversation with somebody like that. And then also, it depends on, if you're doing sleuthing for your own little, small company, it may not be as big of a deal as you're doing it with a multi-billion-dollar industry too, right?
So I wanted to build up.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
So I wanted to build up on that point because the resources you're talking about are mostly public resources, public information. But what I've seen a lot of competitive intelligence is what people are gathering at conferences. People are talking to VCs and kind of seeing where are they investing or what's the stealth company. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that or how.
So this is kind of actually the slide, network of competitors, because if you're an event, and I'll get you here, I got you. Give me 1 second. But yes, I totally get that. So I have, if I have we're frenemies or frenemies, whatever you want to call it. But what I'll hear though, and I've actually been in these conversations where they won't tell you about them, but they might tell you about somebody else. Like, hey, did you hear so and so just laid off 20% of their staff? Did you hear that? Whatever, right? They'll talk about that, and that's you're not going to get that from anywhere else, but just those conversations. And like I kind of said at the end, you just kind of do that towards the end of the trade show. You don't want to do that at the very beginning when everybody's busy. But if you can have those friendly exchanges, and network too, right? It's part of that. But I think that's one area is you can try to do those things. The other area that I've seen work too, which usually costs money, but you can go on LinkedIn and find ex-employees of that company, and you can pay them to give you details. And this gets back to the ethical. What's the ethical part of this? I have not done this before, but I've heard of people that have done that. So, but you can do that too. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just like, again, it just depends on, do you have a specific thing you're really trying to find out? But that's another way to do it. Some people are more willing to talk than others. Yes.
I think like when people switch jobs, they usually go to competitors compared to like non-competitors, right? So wouldn't you actually want to network with your competitors? Like why would a competitor block you from networking with them if that's kind of like the way they work?
Well, I also think it's really maybe more about how the relationships are between the companies. I think that could be a big part of it. Again, it's all different size companies, but there are some CEOs of companies that just flat out don't like other CEOs of other companies, and so they may have a harder line against these things. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying though. But yeah, that's just one thing on that one that I would bring up. I think I got like maybe 3 minutes left. The other thing you want to do, I'm going to fly now, is when you get all this stuff, you become a competitive intelligence wizard, you want to start to build SWOT analysis around these companies. So you can see what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what are their opportunities, what are their threats, and then you'll build that for your own company too, so you can see where you need to do better. Because ultimately, the analysis is trying to get to something like this. It's meaningful to the business, like what all this actually means to them. And then the last thing is stay up to date. So you don't want to just do this one time and be done, right? You want to do this on some sort of cadence. It could be how much time product managers have. But that's probably not a good way to say it. But stay up to date. You want to do this on some sort of cadence. Every 3 months, 6 months, just refresh it, review it, so that when those conversations happen and people are like, well, where do we stand on competitive intelligence? You can, pull from the latest data, or, sales is looking for new information. And then lastly, I think I just want to clear, let's see. So I'm just going to line all this up. So these are just like back to our first thing. When we talked about these are the kind of the ideas. Competitor product features, help user guides, friendly customers, pricing strategies. You can find those out from talking to salespeople, customer success, friendly customers again, market positioning, industry reports that we talked about, and in customer satisfaction, there's a couple Trust Radius and G2 that do that, but that's like can help you figure out like how they're being rated. Again, it's not going to give you all the information, but it's going to give you some level of information that you can use to build it. Thanks again to our sponsors. And I'll just put my LinkedIn if you guys want that, but I think I'm done on time. Or maybe I'm 2 minutes late.